today. So welcome thank you for joining us, Lord Mayor and Councillor Harvey. Thank you. And I think the rules are they're automatically members because we can't really vote. I think the rules.
That's correct, Chair. Both being ex officio.
Ex officio, yeah. Righto. So we've got some apologies of leave of absence. Perhaps we could just list them now, Mr. Turvey.
Yes, we have a leave of absence from the Deputy, and we also have a leave of absence from Alderman Thomas. We have apologies from Councillor Fox and Councillor Sherlock.
Good, thank you. A confirmation of the minutes is someone like to move that? Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Appreciate. Put that. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Consideration of supplementary items. I don't believe we've got any, so we move on. Indications of pecuniary and conflicts of interest. No. Transfer of agenda items. I don't think there's terribly many items on the closed, if any, that we can transfer. So we'll leave that. So the first report is the Hobart Rivulet Vegetation Management Plan, which is quite a big report. So perhaps will I start off with you, Director, Acting Director?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Look, it's really not much to say. I think all of you have been involved in the programs we've had on the Hobart Rivulet and the active work that Bush Care have done in that space to improve the vegetation and the riparian strip along the Hobart Rivulet. This report here, prepared by Envirodynamics, is a management plan to guide us going forward, and it is a very useful document in applying for external funding. I think I'm not telling tales out of school, but I think there will be additional funding for this sort of work provided by the state government in the very near future. And I commend the report to the committee as I think quite a comprehensive guide for our future management of the Hobart Rivulet vegetation. Yes,
and as your report indicates in the report summary, I confirm, and we all know that it's very popular and highly used and greatly valued. And it's good to see it evolve over the years. So I open the item for discussion amongst the elected members. Anyone like to move the recommendation?
Happy to move it. I'm just wondering if Christine or Greg would like to give us a comment as well about the work that's gone into this.
Through the Chair, I'm happy to talk to this. We're very, very happy with the report that was provided to us by Envirodynamics. They really do understand the complexity of being in local government, and they've given us these comprehensive maps, and they really have provided a lot of rigour in their assessment of what are the most significant weeds in this area, and they've given us a very clear picture of where we should start, what we should do so we don't waste our money, what we need to keep going back to, and how we can involve the community. So I'm really, really pleased with the report that we've been given.
Okay. What's your title, Christine?
Park planner. I work with Jill Hickey in open space planning, so that's part of Bushland, but we also work with Parks and Recreation as well.
Okay, thank you. Greg, what do you think?
Oh, you're the chairman now, Mr. Harvey, Councillor Harvey. Through the chair, Councillor Harvey has asked for your input, Greg. If you need to.
I've just unmuted. I'll just point to the recent example of the National Tree Day planting on the Hobart Rivulet that some elected members attended between Tara and McFarlane Street as an example of the way the community responds to opportunities to be involved in the rivulet, and this plan has had involvement by a range of officers across council, so it's well informed the expertise of the consulting firm, and it does provide direction about where we can best spend our time and money along the rivulet to support the community's interest in improving it over the long term.
Can I ask about...
Through the chair, yes, you can, Councillor Harvey.
Of course. Ross Rivulet, I've never explored the Ross Rivulet. I didn't even really understand its nature until this report, because you can't really see where it joins the Hobart Rivulet somewhere at Ross Street. Tara Street. Is that correct?
Well, it goes under the ground in that point. I know that through the big flood in 2018, it carved a massive gouge out in the near the wholesalers there at the bottom of Tara Street, and now there's been there's rectification work done there once and again.
So does it flow down that steep slope from up where the old egg farm was?
Yes, that's right, through the chair. It's a very steep catchment. It runs straight down off Knocklofty.
Okay.
Taking a track through there, but it's very, very steep.
And is that private land or council land, most of it?
Mostly council actually on the rivulet, but there's one section that's Crown land, and yeah, the private land comes in quite close to the rivulet.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Look, I'm pleased about having a plan. What I'd also love to think that happens in the next few years is we do access those funds as Mr. Fisher suggested through grants, so we can get this work done. Every time I walk along the rivulet, I always whack a few weeds while I'm heading along there, and I've just noticed that there's been new species of weeds that are really emerging. The elderberry is one in particular I've noticed that's coming up all over the place, and there's just seedlings all through, as well as the sycamore, which is starting to really take over a lot of the rivulet as well. So I look forward to the sycamores and the elderberries, as well as the thousands of other different species of weeds, or hundreds of other different species of weeds being addressed over time. And it's good to see the Hobart Rivulet Land Care Group or Bush Care Group come into existence as well. So I look forward to spending some time with them as well. I've only managed to get to one of their working bees so far. So yeah, but good work on this, and I look forward to the rivulet improving greatly over the next few years.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Have you got any comments, Lord Mayor? You'll have to. Yeah, that's it.
Just a question, because I haven't had a chance to read the document, I'm sorry. Just on the question of the willows and what this document proposes to do about those, because I know there's some view that in a few places they should remain for historic sort of values.
Director or Mr. Mayor?
Through you, Chair. I think our intention is to return the riparian strip to native vegetation, and I think it's problematic where you retain some willows and their ability to re-establish, as Councillor Harvey's stated, their ability to re-establish in these areas, and their longevity is a challenge in that sort of thing. They become unstable. So I think over time we will, our objective is to remove all of the willows and to replace them with something that's just as stately but native and less invasive. And I suppose the beauty of this sort of thing, particularly we're looking at revegetation and weed control, it is a permanent employment opportunity. There are decades worth of work here, Lord Mayor, and I think over time our intention is to return it to a natural state. And the willows, to be honest, I don't see them being part of that into the long-term future of the rivulet.
And if the Lord Mayor wants to look at the attachment A, page 60 onwards, there's quite a 4 or 5 pages there about where the willows still exist and the strategy to deal with it.
I guess we just need to make sure we do consult with the people that sort of, I think, jumped up and down about the willows. It must have been a decade ago, was it? But I know it used to be something that was hotly contested.
Through you, Chair, I absolutely agree, Lord Mayor, and I think the beauty, I suppose the success to that is to prepare people with an end point of what we want that riparian area where the willows persist, and by getting community support for a rehabilitation plan and a specific site-specific plans for that, I suppose you address people's concern that it'll look like an uncontrolled mess or weedy sort of riparian strip. If in doing the work we do and getting the community involved with a clear objective of what we want it to look like at the end of it, I think that will engage people in an outcome rather than just arguing over particular species.
Yeah, and I suppose in your documentation there, you indicate there might be some positive aspects of having willows there, but as the native vegetation takes over, I suppose the native vegetation returns those same positive, for example, influence on waterway health and biodiversity integrated systems and regulating water temperature, providing shade. So as soon as the native or indigenous species take over, that could fulfil the same role, I imagine, as you remove the willows. Okay, so the significant report, and you've got to thank everyone for this too, because there are significant work gone into this. And obviously the officers should be quite proud of this report. So I intend to put it. Those in favour say aye, or just throw their hands up in the air. Yep, Bill, you. Yep, fine. So it passed unanimously. Thank you. And we move now to 6.3, the intercity cycleways share pathway bridge of remembrance.
Sorry, Chair, 6.2.
Oh, 6. Have I jumped over one? Have I?
Long Beach Reserve.
Oh, sorry. Yes, the plaque.
Yeah, happy to move.
Yeah, fairly straightforward thing. Yes, I knew Walter quite well when I was on some kind of library board with him. Very
should declare an interest.
Well, I think Councillor Dutta would have to declare more of an interest because he's put a letter of recommendation there. But I'm told that this is a delegate to this committee anyway. So
yeah, happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Any further comment? Thank you. I put it. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Now it looks like Councillor Fox has joined us. Thank you, Councillor Fox, for joining us. Your apology for earlier, the meeting was recorded, by the way, but now so we're up to 6.3, which is the
Intercity cycleway shared.
Yeah, I did say that a moment ago, but I haven't got the papers open in front of me now. Now I have a bridge of remembrance. Now I'll probably just hand over to the acting director, just to indicate. Would you like to introduce this?
Yes, Chair. Look, really, this is it's probably the final part of the completion of the project for the Bridge of Remembrance, where in that design there was, in the feedback, there was concern that there was no route that allowed for the regatta grounds in particular, but other activities or events on the regatta grounds to traverse from the northern side of the bridge to the southern side of the regatta grounds. This pathway has been designed to achieve that, but more importantly, to integrate with the existing avenues that border both sides of the Bridge of Remembrance. So there's been some design work, and I've attached a simple plan for how that will be. We've spoken with relative stakeholders to make sure that it meets their objectives. The biggest issue for this is that we need to achieve a 3-metre clearance underneath the bridge, because if we damage any of those panels, I've been informed that it's $10,000 per panel to replace. And
the panels of the bridge, was that?
Panels of the bridge, that's right,
yes.
The aluminium panels. And they are so bespoke that getting them may take months to, if we can in actual fact, get them to fit, because they're all a little bit different. So we've designed this so that we can put in place a gantry that prevents any vehicles that exceed the height limit, warned of that very early on before they even approach the bridge, so that in future regatta grounds events or concert events that we don't have an untoward of impact upon the bridge itself. And we put this to Finance Committee, and we're asked to take it back to Parks to make sure that we were able to proceed with a request for additional capital funding for the project.
Chair?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Harvey.
Look, I'm supportive and I'm happy to move it, but I do have a question about how this connects up with the new staircase that's been built on the Mac Point area that takes us up onto the domain. So what's the footpath from that staircase look like? Does that cut through to this pathway as well?
Through the chair, no. Look, we haven't designed that yet. We're still waiting for that. I suppose at the moment we won't take over that staircase for 5 years. Mac Point will retain ownership and management of that staircase. We're doing a separate project to achieve that, which is part of because you realise that there are to be 2 connections to Mac Point to regatta grounds from the Mac Point development. The staircase case which was opened last week, and one further up which will contain a disabled access lift onto the regatta grounds. That design, we're currently talking to another party about how we might achieve that with the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, who are looking for some opportunity to put inside some development on that. If that were to go ahead, if that were something that we can bring to council, the intention would be that the Commonwealth War Graves Commission would fund and would maintain that facility, and our connection pathway from this to the first or the existing staircase would be part of that development. But at the moment, we don't have funds for that pathway, and we are, as I said, trying to engage with the Commonwealth War Graves Commission to see whether we can partner up in something that would achieve that outcome for us.
So at the moment, if you walk up those stairs, you walk up onto the grass. I haven't walked up it yet.
Through the chair, that's quite correct. In the same way that you walk, a lot of people walk up through that, through onto the grass on the regatta grounds to access the car park. That's the current position. That is where our aim or objective for that is to, when the car park is finished, to direct people onto this this pathway, so they can access the shared pathway, and eventually, or in due course, which may be not that long, depending on how negotiations go with the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, to formalise people's access to the shared pathway along the Tasman and to these new steps through this pathway. So there's a little bit of work to do once the car park's been completed.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Good. Any further comments? I know it's been moved by Councillor Harvey. I put that. Those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Everyone's for. That motion carried unanimously. So we're up to next one, which is the committee action status report. Could someone like to move that?
Moved.
All three at the same time. So it doesn't appear that Councillor Harvey moves everything today. I think we'll just take one from, I think Councillor Fox moved it in first. I think she got in first. They got in first. Any comments? No. Well, I'll put that. Anyone against that motion? No one against. So it's passed unanimously. Questions without notice? Any questions?
I have one.
Yep. And also the Lord Mayor's got one as well.
I go first?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, just this relates to weeds and weed management. Weed problems, as we're all, very much aware, seem to be getting worse, I think. Well, I don't know if we're all aware, but I think I'm aware. And there's many species becoming more visible and overly common, I think, around Hobart. So it's not just a problem on council land, but also on state land. So my question is, can council provide advice on state government activity to manage weeds on their land, such as the Southern Outlet and Brooker Highway? Every time I drive up the Southern Outlet, I'm quite disturbed that it's just a corridor of weeds. Is there any action to deal with it, which doesn't involve just driving over it with a boom, spraying it all? And the same on the Brooker Highway opposite our domain. The weeds on the median strip there need to be dealt with as well to prevent that as the source of weed from, being flown by birds into the domain. Take it on notice.
Director?
Yeah, look, there are contracts with State Growth for that, but look, I'll take that question on notice and give you a more comprehensive answer if you don't mind, Councillor Harvey.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, Lord Mayor, and I've got a question after that.
Yeah, I've actually got a couple of questions because it's been a while since I've been to a parks meeting. So the first one is just related to, is the city using second generation rodent poison? If yes, how is it managing the impact on biodiversity in the 2 to 3 kilometre radius that it can affect?
The simple answer is that no, our contract looks to not use that in areas where that might impact upon wildlife. Obviously, our various visitor hubs or the Bushland depot, etc. The issue we have at the moment, I think at the moment, is supply of some of that material. But our contractors have we've looked at how we can minimise or remove the use of those second generation rodenticides simply because of their impact upon predatory birds, etc. So the answer is we are, in some locations, we still use them in the city, I understand, simply because of a supply issue, but we've removed that from areas where it might obviously allow rodents who have been poisoned to, depart the target site and impact upon native wildlife such as owls and other avian predators.
Okay, thank you. This one might just be referring me to a report that you've already brought up to committee. If the response is just a link to the right report, that'd be great. It's really just around the street trees. How many have been planted per year since the approval of the street tree strategy, and how does this annual planting rate compare to the 2 years prior to the strategy coming in? And do you have a sense of the actual numerical number of trees that you'd need to be planted, that you will need to plant in order to meet the strategy goal?
Through you, Chair. Look, that's probably some detail that's not in an existing report, I think, at the moment, Lord Mayor. But look, I'm happy to take that on notice and provide you with that summary of the last 4 years, I assume that means.
I've lost track of when it started, and what was maybe a year or two before it started. So whether there's actually been a demonstrable change.
Okay.
In what you've been planting.
Yeah, look, the street tree strategy was approved in 2017. So look, I'll take that on notice and I'll provide you a summary of our plantings over the period before to look at the trend and look at our success in planting trees in that since that date. Now, these are street trees, obviously, because if I were to count the Hobart rivulet, we'd be well ahead. But you're really talking about street tree strategy implementation. Yep, look, I'll take that on notice, Lord Mayor.
Is that all the questions, Lord Mayor?
No, I do have one more, which is, if I can, just what protections are in place in the planning scheme to protect Hobart bushland reserves from the development of private roads and other private infrastructure. Do all Hobart bushland reserves have this an equal protection?
Lord Mayor, look, if you don't mind, I'll take that on notice because I think it is a little bit complex in the planning scheme, so I'll seek some advice. My initial response would be that anything that occurs on a council reserve has to have the approval through obviously the general manager's consent and be consistent with the purpose of reservation. But I think it's a little bit more complicated that in terms of the planning scheme controls. So if you don't mind, I'll take that on notice and consult with Neil Noy in planning about that and give you an answer appropriately.
Thank you.
Councillor Fox, have you got any questions without notice? Okay, thanks. Look, I've got one question which I did highlight in the media that I'd bring up. It sort of has been answered in part. We're referring to the trees around the town hall and the removal of the plants in the plant area around the tree. Incidentally, I haven't found that photograph yet, but I did get some Mercury attention a number of years ago where I climbed the tree to save those trees from a previous Lord Mayor who wanted to chop them all down, so it would look like an Italian piazza or something. Anyway, so we saved those trees. So they wouldn't be there if it wasn't for me climbing that tree. And I don't think I'd climb it these days. But the question is, and I've noticed you've responded to some public outcry by having some very colourful planter boxes. And I congratulate you and your team there, Acting Director, for putting. So how much did the planter boxes cost, and how much did we have to invest to actually sort of replace the planters, the planting around the trees? And I'm aware of the reasons why, or your reasons why those plants were removed. Yes, so that's the question.
Look, I'm happy to answer that question, Chair. Look, the planter boxes cost me nothing because they were the ones that we use all year round for the Christmas displays. They were parked up at the Clearys Gates Depot. So they've been repainted and resprayed and brought out a little bit early, I must admit, to match with the Christmas decorations at the town hall. The plants themselves obviously come from our nursery, and to, I suppose, to respond to the concern that's been expressed about, the lack of colour, we intend to keep those pop-up displays going all year round, so that they maintain that colour, which was really, to be honest, was only presented or provided by the Clivias there for probably 3 or 4 weeks a year, and therefore what we're saying is that we own a nursery, we've got the planter boxes. I think they provide a very strong element of colour to the cityscape, and so our intention is to keep those through. We'll be replacing those with probably Christmas lilies in the new year after Chrissy, and I'm challenging the nursery to keep the colour and that vibrancy going throughout the year. The second point I think you raised was the need to remove the clivias from the beds, and I think we've spoken about this before, but the iconic nature of the trees in front of the town hall was being threatened and by the presence of those clivias, which the root mass was dominating, and it was very difficult for us to manage those plantings within the garden beds because of the impact upon the feeder roots of those now quite significant trees. The lesson for that, I suppose, the evidence of that would be to go to the Lady Osborne room and look at the canopy of those trees, and you'll see there's between a 5 and 10% canopy death of those trees. And that's what raised the alarm for us, is that we're seeing those trees start to decline. And we made that decision to replace it with the gravel, to set off the building itself and to protect the trees. And this year, now that we've done that in the regrowth in spring this year, you'll see that the trees are starting to come back, but the level of tree death in the canopy is still quite evident if you inspect them from the Lady Osborne room. And I encourage you to do that just to see what our alarm bells rang when we saw that occurring.
Thank you very much. And I know we're not allowed to debate it, but just an extra comment from me is that over the years we've had a number of plants, not only those ones you took out, and I'm glad to see that for parts of the city we don't look like the East Berlin before the wall came down. So let's move on, and that we need a motion to close this meeting and move into closed.
Moved.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey.